There's been some great eras in video games, but for me one of the best that comes to mind was during the late 90s with PC gaming. This era was great for many reasons, but notably was the dawn of hardware 3D and GPU acceleration with things like 3D effects cards and the Glide API. The creativity was off the charts. PC gaming stood unique as truly an experience that you wouldn't find anywhere else. Consoles at the time could not come close to matching a PC in terms of games, and if you owned a pimped out system, it was a wonderful time. Like many of us, I used to own a PC back in this time, and on a recent trip to my parents' garage, I uncovered some old PC parts that I used back then. So I thought it would be a cool idea to take the parts that I have from my parents' house, the ones that I picked up, as well as purchase some additional parts and see if we can rebuild a retro gaming PC from the Windows 98 era and take a look and see what is required to do so, as well as some tricks and tips along the way that you want to look out for if you are thinking about building your own retro style PC in 2019. The first and most important part is obviously the CPU and motherboard. For this, I'm using an ABIT BH6 Slot 1 motherboard. For me, this represents the sweet spot for DOS and Windows PC gaming, and accepts both a Pentium 2 and Pentium 3 class processors all the way up to 850 MHz. My CPU is the Pentium 3 running at 366 MHz, and for the RAM, I'm using two 128MB SIMs for a total of 256 MB. Now for DOS and Windows 98 gaming, this is plenty of RAM, but obviously it's a drop in the ocean compared to the modern era. For the sound card, I own the legendary SOUNDBLASTER AWE32, which is a full-length ISO-slot sound card. The digital section is just a SOUNDBLASTER 16, but in addition comes with the EMU8000 Advanced Wave Effects music synthesizer chip. Additionally, the SOUNDBLASTER AW32 includes advanced signal processing. The sound card comes with 1 MB of general MIDI samples, but it can also address up to an additional 28 MB of DRAM via the two expandable SIM slots found on the sound card itself. And then we get to the graphics cards. I have three choices to choose from. First is the ATI 3D Rage 2C. This is a DirectX 5 card that contains 4 MB of texture RAM on board. The second choice is the MATROX MILLENIUM 2. If you are familiar with MATROX, they were well known for high quality graphics cards and had very fast 2D speeds and crisp output. The Millennium 2 comes with 8 MB of texture RAM. Third is the 3D Effects VOODOO 3. With 16 MB of texture memory, it supports DirectX 6 in hardware. Now believe it or not, I went back and forth between the Millennium 2 and the VOODOO 3, but the winner of course has to be the 3D Effects card. It offers the best all-round experience between DOS and Windows gaming with both software rendering and 3D Glide, Direct 3D and OpenGL games in Windows. Now of course, the other two graphics cards also support these features, but the 3D Effects is the most powerful card you could probably use from this era. So I've always said if you want to build a retro gaming PC, then what you really want to do is get a hold of an old retro gaming PC case that was something that was around at the same time as a retro gaming PC. Now, it's easy just to buy a fancy, black style case with LEDs from a modern era, but what you'll find is it just doesn't really fit the retro aesthetic that you're going for. So what I ended up doing was I bought this case from eBay, but this is actually a PC. It's a whole bunch of parts in there, and for $100 I got this case, and basically there's a PC in here. As you can see, there is a 32 speed CD drive and a CD burner and a floppy disk drive. So some of these parts we're going to use in our new build, but some of them we're not. And what I normally do in this scenario is I will just resell the parts that I'm not using and try to recoup some of that money that I spent. The The system inside the case is running an AMD Case 6. It also contains 32 megabytes of SIM RAM, and in order to recoup some of the costs that we've put into this PC for the case, what I normally like to do is just sell the parts that we don't use. Now, it's unlikely that we will get our money back, but at least $30 to $40 wouldn't be so bad. So we've got everything, just about everything out of this machine, but we've still got to get these drives out. Sometimes they'll screw one side but not the other because you got to get this back case off as well. I'm usually lazy like that sometimes and don't always do that, but and this screw looks like it's been stripped, but we still can get it out. And we're going to end up putting these drives back in the computer, but we just want to, we want to clean the case. It's dusty, it's kind of grody, and clean it up as best we can, make it look respectable. So as you can see, our case is cleaned and it looks really, really nice. It's come up very, very well. The side panel, I cleaned at it as well on both sides, and yeah, it looks really cool. So the next thing now we need to do is install our motherboard. So now that we have our motherboard installed, the next thing that I like to do is a bit of a smoke test, and that is I'll add a graphics card and then I'll connect a monitor, knowing that there's no keyboard and mouse and there's no hard drives at the moment, and see if we can get the system to boot to the BIOS or post. And I do that just to make sure that everything that has been done at this point is working, because one of the things you don't want to do is build a PC, put it all back together, or put it together and realize that it doesn't boot up for some reason. There's some type of hardware error, or the card's not sitting in place, or the CPU is not installed properly, or RAM issues. So I've just installed a graphics card into this machine. We have nothing else, there's no hard drives or anything else, no keyboard or mouse. And I've hooked it up to this monitor. Now, this is not a representation of the final product. This is really just to make sure that everything is working. So turning the power on, hopefully this thing will boot up. And there's the speaker beep, which is a good sign. If you get one speaker beep, it means everything is in good shape. And there we go. We've got our Pentium 3 at 366 megahertz. So everything looks to be in good shape, which is an awesome sign. Now, the next thing we want to do is install our graphics card, our sound card, and start fitting in our hard drives and our CD drives back into the system so we can get this machine built up and installed and start playing some awesome retro games from the 90s. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. MVG, why are you using a 4x3 flat panel display on a retro gaming PC from Windows 98 era? Well, I don't actually want to continue using this. It's only really being utilized for setting up and configuring and tweaking of everything to make sure that the PC is running appropriately and everything is configured correctly. But now we're going to replace that display with a old school CRT. I recommend to anyone, if you're thinking about building a retro gaming PC, then you need to get a VGA CRT display. So now that we have our PC all built up and ready to go with our CRT display, let's go ahead and play some games. And for this, rather than just play the classics that we've come to expect, like Doom, Quake, Duke 3D and others, I've dug into my library of classic games and come up with a quick list of some of my personal favourites, many of which still look and play great today. Most of these games, with some exceptions, were never brought forward in the modern era with remakes and such, so it's always great to go back, revisit and play these games the way that they were intended, with the vision of the programming team in mind. And in conclusion, I'm really happy to be revisited with my old retro gaming PC from the 90s, and it's something that I'm very proud to have as part of my collection. Let me know what your favourite DOS and Windows games are in the comments below. So there you have it, guys. That is my Windows 98 retro gaming PC build. Let me know what you thought about it. This was a mix of obviously parts that I used to own, as well as purchasing a case off eBay and really just putting together the whole package, including the CRT, which is a very important piece of any retro gaming PC build that you may consider. Now, before I go, guys, I want to hear your thoughts. What are some of your favorite DOS and Windows games of this era? Let me know in the comments below, because I've got some time off coming over the holiday break, and I'm definitely going to start playing some games. So give me your recommendations and I'll definitely check them out. Well, guys, we're going to leave it here for this video. Thank you so much for watching it. If you liked it, you know what to do. Leave me a thumbs up, and as always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye for now.